gentleness in his manner of talking to her gave Venetia reassurance, even though she was puzzled and didn't understand a word the old man was telling her.
Well, I think it's a fabulous evocation of Venice, and then northern Italy as well. We go on a wonderful journey from the canals of Venice, through a lot of the architecture and the buildings, up to the countryside of northern Italy, which I think is a fabulously exotic setting, and I think that matches the exotic adventures that our characters go on. We're pushing, in the way Thomas Hardy did, the bounds of that which is possible. And so the extremes and the wonderful sort of twists and turns that Venetia and Paolo go through, I think are just a fabulous journey. Well, Paolo's a lot of fun. I think as a leading man goes, he's got everything. I almost gave the game away in terms of the plot there, if anybody listened to this before they read the book. I think his power and his philosophic gentleness is a wonderful thing in a hero. The fact that, he isn't extremely violent, he isn't extremely clever. Everything is kind of subtle and nuanced, which I think is beautifully done. Well, I've never been to Venice, whilst I've read about it a lot, obviously, and seen it in a lot of movies. So it's nice to read a book with such detail, where someone has really considered what they're doing in terms of the way the journeys are made in the book. It's lovely that we get our journeys through Venice, not just in descriptions of where we're passing, but exactly what we're seeing, and hearing, and even smelling as we move through some of the streets. And that's been really enjoyable. Well, I try to read the book as carefully as I can before I start, so that I can sketch out a good idea of who's who. And the most important thing in audiobook narration, I think, is that the voices are differentiated without jarring the reader. When I do audio work on movies or radio plays, you might pick a voice that is quite extreme. I've sort of played black South African prison guards, and for that to really sound authentic with a black African cast, you go a lot further than I might if I was doing an audiobook, because being a Northern European sort of RP narrator, you don't want the voice to stray too far from that narrative line when you're listening to it, because you could be relaxing on a plane with this audiobook, you could be sitting in your garden, you could be sitting in a bath, you could be on your daily commute to work. And what you need the book to do is gently take you through all of these experiences. The audiobook should go as far as to paint in the delicate colours that the writer has expressed, without, I think, pushing those extremes. So, for example, in Ping Luo, the Chinese man who is consulted by Venetia, I've tried to really give a flavour of the fact that he is of Oriental extraction, but at the same time studied in England, speaks English beautifully, is very wise, so that it's very clear when he is speaking or when Venetia's speaking. And there's another thing in terms of playing a woman. Very rare that men play women convincingly, and so we don't want to approach anything like a Monty Python idea of, pitch. And so it's ways of trying to find subtleties that allow the audiobook reader to hear whoever's speaking and be familiar with that voice, so that when Paolo and Venetia have conversations where I'm not saying said Paolo, said Venetia, because we don't need that, we can just tell who's speaking, it's recognisable, but that it isn't silly. I'm not attempting to be a 20-something-year-old woman. All I can do is approach that in a way that makes it clear for whoever's listening that these are the words. And I think hopefully once you get into the book and those voices become familiar, you don't think about them again. It's just who that person is. Well, it's generally down to fitness and sobriety, I think, generally. It's quite a hard working day. If you think we start at 10 o'clock in the morning, we finish at 5, short break in the morning, say an hour for lunch and short break in the afternoon, and the rest of the time you're just here with a microphone hearing every single noise you make. And so to ensure that there's continuity through the book, so that it doesn't sound different in the morning, the afternoon or the evening, it's about generally keeping in good shape, being able to get up in the morning, have a shower and do some vocal exercises so I'm ready. And then really just about keeping that focus through the day, so that we don't feel anything's getting tired, anything's getting boring, because when somebody listens to the book, they've no idea when it was recorded. It should all seem as one. It should seem beautifully smooth throughout. So I do my very best to ensure I know exactly where we are in terms of the plot, so I know what's coming up. Because it's very important that I'm not discovering the book as I go along. I'd say it's a very exciting romantic adventure. That for someone who likes travel, likes good food, appreciates fashion, then it's a wonderful escape. I think it's the kind of book that people who love to laze on a beach and imagine themselves in a completely different world, or on a cold January morning sit on a tube and escape into a completely different world, will adore. It's fiery, it's tempestuous, it's got a real flavour of that, which isn't a kind of staid, tightly bodiced English drawing room novel. It goes on adventures, and I think those adventures are what make it just so much fun. No, not in a million years. I'd quite like to go for a beer with Paolo.